Channel 7's parent company has revealed plans to merge with Australia's biggest radio broadcaster, Southern Cross Media. In a move marking the end of an era, billionaire Kerry Stokes will step down as Seven's chairman after guiding the company for decades.
Hello, welcome to Media Watch. I'm Linton Besser. And first tonight, the deal to shrink yet further Australia's ever-shrinking media industry. As once were titans, now so diminished, try to eke what profit they can from audiences and advertisers long since seduced by overseas rivals.
This is one of the biggest media shake-ups in Australia for years, one welcomed by the markets and one being described by analysts as a case of upsizing to survive. Creating a company with scale, they say, to take on the challenge of big tech and the streaming platforms.
The proposed merger of Southern Cross Media and Seven West Media will create a $420 million player to rival Nine Entertainment, incorporating a national television network, WA's only metro newspaper and more than 100 radio stations, with much hope pinned to AFL broadcast rights and the growth in Southern Cross Media's audio platform Listener, with the deal being reported in the Seven-owned titles like this.
Stokes inks blockbuster deal.
Seven West signs mega radio deal.
But if the deal goes through, the real story here may be the end of one of Australia's few remaining press dynasties, because not only will the Stokes' interest in the new company be halved to just 20%, Kerry Stokes has confirmed he'll be stepping down as chairman in February. Unlike his 20th century rivals, Kerry Stokes was not born within cooee of a silver spoon. Put up for adoption as a toddler, forced to drop out of school at 14 and in trouble with the cops 5 years later after a joyriding fiasco. He fled to WA.
My background was one of being very difficult, very hard. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I had lots of different occupations and obviously lots of different experiences. I had some time on the street and sometimes work was very difficult.
Stokes went on to defy the odds, first as a property developer and builder of shopping centres, before setting his sights on the power and influence of the media. In the 70s and 80s, he bought and sold a number of stations before plunging back into the game with gusto a decade later by seizing the Seven network.
I have always held ambitions to be involved in a national network. There has never been a better time than the confusion that currently existed, which I took advantage of.
Under his gimlet eye, Seven rose and rose. In 2007, it became the nation's top-rating network, overtaking the once untouchable Channel 9, in part thanks to the success of breakfast TV juggernaut Sunrise and its snatching back the rights to broadcast one of Australia's more dominant religions. Stokes also built a stake in Perth's only major metro newspaper, The West Australian.
You own a Perth TV station,
yes,
and you're trying to own the only paper in town. How is this good for Perth viewers and Perth readers?
We see them as separate entities. We wouldn't control the West, and this is the big furphy.
Of course you wouldn't, Mr Stokes. What is indisputable, however, is after 2011, when he consolidated his media assets, creating Seven West Media, his $4 billion media empire provided him with extraordinary influence. He was on first-name terms with a former WA Premier, as evidenced in these chummy text messages about rival billionaire Clive Palmer. And the extraordinary exemption granted him from mandatory COVID quarantine raised eyebrows.
WA Police gave the billionaire an exemption on medical grounds when Kerry Stokes flew into Perth on his private jet.
But thanks to the internet, the sun is rapidly setting on the era of the Australian media mogul. Streaming services and social media have cultivated audiences in the billions and siphoned away so large a share of advertising revenue that Stokes's $4 billion media play has been steadily winnowing, with magazines and radio stations jettisoned, leaving a company that today is worth less than 6% of that figure.
Seven West management teams have tried to cut their way to growth, but earnings per share have halved and halved again. The company has too much debt and hasn't paid a dividend since Donald Trump was president the first time.
The reputations of Seven and Kerry Stokes have also been dented by recent controversies, from the tawdry manner in which Seven secured an interview with Bruce Lerman, a man later designated a rapist by a civil court, lavishing him with 12 months of free rent, a $361 tomahawk steak and Thai massages.
Let's light some fires.
To the bankrolling of Ben Roberts-Smith's campaign against the journalism, which would ultimately prove the man was less war hero than war criminal. The unsuccessful defamation suit costing Stokes a small fortune.
This is a media proprietor who should believe in journalism, yet he was waging a huge war against investigative journalism. What does that say?
The terms of the merger also mean Seven Group Holdings, which holds the lion's share of the $20 billion Stokes fortune, may receive a tax credit, which could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially putting Stokes in the departure lounge.
The merger looks like an ageing Kerry Stokes exit ramp from frontline media ownership. This is a timely and financially influenced managed retreat.
And offering an escape too for his son Ryan, who on Saturday took to the pages of his own newspaper to insist he remained committed to the media after commentary like this.
Ryan is no Lachlan Murdoch, who has ink in his veins. The media baronship of the Stokes family is likely to begin and end with Kerry.
Two things are almost certain should the merger proceed. The culling of another tier of journalists with as much as $30 million already flagged for cuts, and yet another tightening of one of the most concentrated media markets in the world. If this is the end of the story of the Stokes as press barons, there can perhaps be no better illustration of the surrender of once mighty media empires to the forces of change. Savvy investors now picking leisurely at the bones. And now to a startling new road rule, which apparently came into force across the country last Wednesday.
The Australian government is implementing a night driving curfew for drivers aged 60 and over, starting October 1, 2025.
And how did the placid netizens of Facebook feel about this controversial policy?
This government is fucked, rotten to its core and needs to be dissolved.
The wrath reaching all the way to the Federal Transport Minister, who tried a dash of cold water.
There's a new misinformation campaign doing the rounds online designed to unsettle older Australians. We will never introduce a curfew for drivers over 60 years of age.
Across vast sweeps of the internet, where misinformation like this bogus announcement is rife, serious journalism and foundational facts about the world are being dislodged by urban myth and culture war prop, such as this piece of advice from God's intermediary about the dangers of worshipping America's spray-tanned president.
Trump is not a saviour. He is a mirror reflecting your hatred, anger and fear.
Or that eating fruit increases the risk of heart disease. Or that one terrorist group may soon have its own embassy in London. Until now, social media giants, including Google and Meta, have sometimes labelled false information as exactly that, and even removed some dubious material being circulated by their mysterious and profitable algorithms. But if you thought protecting us from untruths online is the least they could do, well, you'd be wrong. Because these tech giants are now proposing to weaken further their own voluntary code of conduct, which is already so threadbare it might better be described as a joke. And in a new discussion paper are wondering in exquisite corporatees whether it might be time to give up policing misinformation altogether.
This review is seeking views on whether misinformation should remain within the code's scope.
Even going so far as to highlight claims that discussion about misinformation is,
in fact, generating misinformation alarmism, a phenomenon that can lower people's trust in media and journalism.
Yes, it's our anxiety that's the real problem. Last year, the federal government abandoned an attempt to legislate penalties against social media platforms, including fines of up to 5% of their global revenue for allowing misinformation to go unchecked after it failed to garner the support of the Coalition and the Greens. Meanwhile, the industry body has assured us it does much to protect Australians being assailed by misinformation, and it will
continue to be guided by public consultation to assess whether the code remains in line with community expectations.
fighting to keep our noses above a roiling ocean of information sewage. The tech giants have been accustomed to tossing us the most meagre of life preservers, busy as they are, piloting where they wish and popping champagne from the upper deck. But with real journalism and trust sinking below the surface, surely we must demand more of the companies which now govern so much of the public conversation. And finally, to the earthquake which shook our island home last week.
Breaking news. Reports Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman have separated after almost 20 years of marriage. We're live to the US as those breaking details emerge.
The sad tale of Splitsville arrived right on time for its natural home, breakfast television.
According to TMZ, Nicole didn't want this. This is being driven by Keith, and he has moved out of the family home.
And swiftly dominated the news.
Nicole kicked to the curb and
Kidman left with broken heart after split.
Keith blamed for shock split Nicole didn't want.
The original TMZ report was confirmed by People magazine in the US before official papers were filed in Tennessee's Davidson County Circuit Court 24 hours later. But with not a skerrick of further intel from tight-lipped publicists, gossip writers and television reporters were forced to find any way they could to keep the story alive. From the obvious Sydney angle.
Liam, we understand that the couple have several apartments in the city.
Some of them are here on Sydney Harbour, some are in the exclusive Southern Highlands.
To scouring Keith Urban's lyrics for clues.
It is a love song that he wrote for Nicole Kidman called The Fighter, and there's a lyric where he says, "Baby, I'll be your fighter." Well, he changed the lyric to, "Maggie, I'll be your guitar player," and the internet has decided that's his new girlfriend.
And with so few real ingredients, the nothing burgers piled up. Some enterprising scribes travelling back in time on the trail of breadcrumbs.
I interviewed Keith Urban about a year ago, and when we spoke, it was very clear that the poor guy was totally sick of being asked about his much more famous wife.
While the Daily Telegraph rocked the world with its promise of a major scoop from the couple's daughter.
Sunday Rose breaks her silence.
So, what did she say?
The 17-year-old posted a clip of her on the catwalk, writing,
"J'adore Dior," heart emoji,
in the caption.
Huh. So that's why they split. Another person deeply enmeshed in the Urban Kidman imbroglio finally broke his silence too.
They're both very treasured friends of mine, and I love them both very dearly. Look, I have nothing to add to this story.
The Daily Mail, though, was head and shoulders above the pack, publishing almost 200 articles and slices of social media in which even silence provided sufficient substantiation to press publish. Like this exclusive with Keith's mother on her way to the gym.
Marion refused to be drawn on any matter concerning the divorce, offering a terse,
"No comment, thank you."
And a frankly sexist churn of reports carrying all the authority of neighbourhood tittle-tattle.
Nicole Kidman went from besotted wife to a rigid ragdoll.
She acted like his mother.
Bottomless need for sexual attention led to the end of her marriage.
I don't know how, but celebrity reporting has along the way been granted its own set of rules by the public, where innuendo serves as evidence and scuttlebutt for substance. But notwithstanding the happy atmosphere of a public execution, let's never confuse any of this scandalising with actual journalism. And that's all from us tonight. Be sure to check us out on ABC iView as well as YouTube, Facebook and X. You can find full statements on our website, and don't forget to send us your tips. I'll see you next week.